Welcome back to another episode of Church is Stupid.
Comma but. Oh my gosh.
Okay, listen. I'm not saying that this is why this is your goodbye episode, but this is 100% why. This is the day that we announced that Andy's been fired.
I looked at you and I was like,
You're just
wait
like,
a second.
yep.
Am I supposed to say my name? No, wait.
There's something I'm supposed to do here, but I don't know what.
Here, just for you, we'll try this again.
Okay, from the top.
This is Church is Stupid.
Comma but.
I'm Ruth.
I'm Andy.
I'm Elijah.
And I'm Kate.
And this episode is going to be our goodbye episode. to
Not like
Andy.
period, just to me. Just so
Yeah,
we're clear.
not
Just
like
for
to
Andy.
everyone. I did not make that very clear.
No, not at all.
No.
Figured I'd put that one out there
Yeah,
because
no,
it definitely
like-
sounded like, yep, we're done. We're out of content.
I'm bored. I'd rather have my what days today? Whatever day we're recording back. I just got really
Thursday.
awkwardly silent
Yeah.
there. Okay,
Thursday.
so
It's
thanks.
Thursday.
I couldn't remember. I woke up and I came here, and that was about it. So, anyhow, yeah. So today is Andy's last episode as a main person on the podcast. I don't want to actually shut him off to ever being allowed back because I love him, but
If you love him, you'll let him go, Ruth.
That means I have to come back. Right? So I don't have to.
Wow. So, yeah, today I thought it'd be fun if we just kind of talked about some of our favorite times on the podcast, whether it's like weird things, but also to sort of pass the torch on to Kate, who will be taking Andy's place.
Woohoo.
She's so excited, especially at this time of day. And so, yeah. So, Andy, I'll let you go first since it's your goodbye. What was your favorite episode?
My favorite episode still has to be the first one.
Pews? Why?
Pews. I think it's still that idea that sparked everything.
Mm-hmm.
For me, at least. It's like that. I walk into church on a Sunday morning, and the number one lecture that I'm always fearing of getting, no matter where I sit, is you're sitting in so-and-so's pew, or that kind of thing. And so it's something that does deter me away from going to churches, and especially when I was in college, deterred me from going and exploring a lot of churches because I did that whole time period for a couple of weeks in the beginning of college, and when I was a freshman I could only go to those churches that were near campus, and so it was like, oh no, I don't want to piss anybody off with going and either stealing their seat or just doing something wrong on the church, whatever. And so it's always been a fear of mine, is that whole sitting in old lady Nancy's pew who's going to really enforce everything. Her name wouldn't be Nancy. Nancy's
Old
too
lady
nice.
Nancy.
Nancy's far too nice for that.
That's true. I believe all the
Yes.
Nancys I know are incredibly nice.
Yeah, exactly. So it can't be Nancy.
Way to go.
That's
You
the
messed it
moral of the whole story.
up. You messed it up.
That's
already.
why I love the first episode. It just can't be Nancy.
The first episode points us in the direction of knowing it's not Nancy.
Oh my god.
You know how earlier I said you were fired for that? Actually, it's this.
I believe this is going to be a running episode with the running gag line of I'm fired for everything that I say today.
Pretty much.
So in that case,
Which is actually funny because you quit working at the church.
over a month ago.
Yeah, over a month ago.
Yeah.
But we suckered you into staying on with us until you had to go to do other stuff
Well,
and
I'm-
live a different
you
life.
know, I'm headed to go council camp, not this next week, but the next week after, and that's why this is more or less my final episode of the last date that I gave you guys. And then everything afterwards becomes preparing for Idris's wedding, a trip that I'm planning with a couple of friends to go to the Grand Canyon, which is going to be fun because I've never been. I know I am.
We just went, so it's okay.
It's one of those things where it's
3
I've always
years
wanted
ago.
to do this.
That was just...
But, fun times planned. But yes, my favorite episode, definitely the pews.
Kate, as somebody who is not on the episodes, what was your favorite episode?
Does that mean I was supposed to listen to the other
Yeah,
episode?
nice
Well,
one, Ruth.
Yeah, we'll put you on
Wow,
the spot.
okay. Let's see here.
This is how you get fired.
Oh
No,
boy.
just you, Andy. Just you.
Oh boy.
It could be one that you were on. That's fine. You were supposed to just play it like, I just
Yeah,
happened to like the one I
sure.
talked about the most.
Yeah, let's say I like the swearing one a lot because that's like the only one I remember. Because I don't even remember what I did this morning.
It's fair. It's fair. Next time I should like text the questions at like
Yeah.
a week ahead of
Exactly.
time.
Next time,
Yes.
ask her what her favorite is when it isn't 10:30 in the morning.
Exactly.
I'll just be like, hey, by the way, am I your favorite pastor? Tell me every reason why right now.
To be fair, I took the cop out of the first episode.
You did. I mean, honestly, so I've been going through, working on the Bible study to go with these episodes. And I had to like go check my descriptions on a couple of them because I didn't really remember what they were about. So I
Is
mean,
that because my
it's
names
fair.
are so like poor?
That's I mean, I wouldn't say
we
they
weren't
were
gonna say it,
poor,
but
but I also, I had a hard time remembering if What's a Steeple was about building, like weird building stuff, because we talked about talking about that, but I don't think we ever
Well, there's
did.
a lot of times where we went in to an episode where we were like, this is the subject, this is what we're going to talk about.
And
And then
then
we
it just
divert
was
from it
not that.
almost fully, and then it becomes about like a complete side topic becomes the
It's
main
true.
topic.
Though I think my favorite title you gave us was Why Boring. I don't know why. Every time I see it, I just laugh.
Why use many word when few word work?
Okay, Kevin.
Thanks.
I'm pretty sure you said that word for word
You did.
on that episode.
To be fair, why say like?
Okay, Elijah, what's your favorite episode?
I mean, I have to just jump on the board with Andy too. Probably the Peas one.
You also don't remember any of the other ones? This is embarrassing. Guys, listen to our podcast that we don't even
Okay,
remember.
I did like talking about on the more controversial side. Like I don't actually remember the name of the actual episode, but when we were talking about, sort of the responsibility of the church to hold itself accountable.
Leadership?
It may have been. We've had a lot where we've sort of talked about like hard conversations before
Yeah.
we actually had the hard conversation in quote episode.
Hard conversation.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah,
It's
I
meta.
think there was a certain point where we started to like, started to almost focus in more on the real responsibility of the church and how a lot of the times the church fails to meet it and hold itself accountable. And I think there was a certain point. I don't know, maybe like I don't remember what episode number it was, but there was a certain point where I feel like we started to like really tune in and focus in on like the more serious things. It took us a little bit to get there, but I still do like the Pews episode a lot because it was our first one and we didn't know what we were doing, much like we still don't now.
And we
But
came
even
into
more
it-
so then.
We came into it like so prepared. We had like Ruth had her
It
history
was
lesson on
probably
it.
the most preparation we've
Hey,
ever done to an episode.
Whoa! Don't
We,
come at
a
me like
collective
that.
we,
Okay, I
okay.
was like,
A collective we.
Hang on.
To be fair, all of my experiences leading up to that moment were preparation for that episode.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, see, because like for me, I have, and Kate knows this because she's the social media director, that I have had the episodes in like the Google Drive form for quite a while. Do I always follow them?
no, you don't. But I'm the one that
No.
made them pretty. Thank you very
You
much.
did. You made them very.
I made
pretty.
them readable.
It's true. You made sense from my chaos. But there have been, the topics have usually been in place for a while, and they come from places of research. So
Well,
just have to say that.
but like,
Gotta defend myself.
We had like real history for it, like the history of pews and all. Like,
true.
I'm not fully dissing everything that you're about. Yeah, I am. But like,
And that's why you're fired.
fair enough.
But
I'm just kidding.
again.
It
But
will never get
It
old.
is this whole preparation thing. Like, it makes that episode stand out.
I have a different episode now. Just so I don't have to copy Andy, you've reminded me of the D&D episode.
I was kind of surprised you didn't say that one first.
That
I was
yeah,
very surprised. I'm like, wait
I
a
forgot about
second.
that one for the moment, but that
The
was
first part or the second part?
Or the game.
I liked
All
both
of it.
a lot, but I think the first part I enjoyed talking about it.
That's fair. That's a good one.
Christopher had a lot of knowledge on this stuff, and
Yeah.
he was good to talk.
He was a great guest. He was super knowledgeable on the subject. I had to say, actually watching or preparing for that episode where we had to watch Darkest Dungeon. By we was I think it was just me and Ruth, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think Christopher watched it too. I don't remember.
Christopher did. We had only one person who decided not to do their job, hence why they were fired.
To be fair, yeah.
This is the To Be Fair. This is just the To Be Fair podcast now.
To be fair.
That was great. I was gonna say leading up to it though, I was not excited to watch it, because I knew it was gonna be, or at least I suspected it was gonna be unbearable, and to my surprise, it was unbearable. But it was more funny. Still, it was a little more funny than I thought it would be.
If I remember, what made that hard was we were all trying to get together to watch it, but it was in the middle of like when COVID was really, really bad, right? And so finding like a time or a way for us to get together was like impossible. You
might be right. Yeah,
if I remember correctly,
that was a good, very lighthearted, very. It was a good, fun episode. I remember that one.
That's fair.
You're last
That's
to
fine,
go.
sir.
Don't ask me, because now I have to think, and after all the crap I gave everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I really liked the one, I think, where we talked in the second episode of the first half of the shame culture stuff, because I know that was very, very specific.
I have no idea what episode you're talking.
So the one where we talked a lot about shame culture within the church, and it kind of ended up, initially it was supposed to be in general, but it ended up being very specific towards women, and then eventually the next week we did men.
Mm-hmm.
But that second episode of the week, where we really just kind of dived in and shared a little bit of our hearts of why that shame culture is so devastating, I think that was probably my favorite episode. Just because to me that was the moment when I got to really break down why I'm here and why it's more important, or why Christ is so much more than the church, or so much more than some of the stupid stuff we deal with.
Yeah.
And so that was mine. Yeah. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. I had an episode. I'm so funny.
Very proud of you.
Thank you.
We don't have to shame you.
Oh. But yeah,
But it's the culture around it.
And that's why you're fired.
Okay, sorry. I was thinking about this in the other episode that I really enjoyed doing.
Okay.
Was the episode that we talked about dogma and different versions of the Bible, or just basically the episode where we called out the King James version, because I believe that needs to be done more often.
Dude, I had to memorize King James when I was in school. I went to a very Baptist school. It was rough.
Okay, you say I had to memorize King James. Like, you don't have the entire
No, not the
I was
whole thing,
gonna
but
say.
every time we had to memorize verses all the time, like weekly and everything, and it was all in King James.
Man, I remember when I had to memorize the entire Bible in the King James version.
What would be even better is if she just started reading it, or citing it right now from memory.
Exactly.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
We have a
Oh my
podcast where you recite the entire Bible in King James, and then we all rag on King
Yeah,
James
no,
version.
let's not do that.
Then, oh my gosh, it'll just be like a reaction video to her. The King James. I'm so funny. Okay.
Hilarious.
I'm not reacting to that.
I'm trying to be relevant. Is it working? Can you tell we just watched the Bo Burnham special?
I have 20 minutes left of it, and I just
Oh my gosh, Andy, finish it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So
Inside, the Netflix Bo Burnham's special that he produced, all from just his one-room apartment.
It was a house. It was a tiny house, though.
Okay. The point is, he was going crazy the entire time that he's doing it, and he's still gone mad because this entire time he's been at home alone. The only thing that he's been doing is, he's got his camera out and his electronic equipment all hooked up to the camera. And to be fair, I completely understand why he's gone crazy, because that whole making of that film would have driven me mad.
Mm-hmm. Well, and honestly, I think there was a lot over the past year and a half that just, it weighs on you. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons we actually started this podcast was because we got together, a couple of us. Kate, you weren't there, but we loved you anyway.
whoa.
We did. It's just great. That's how I got suckered in. But a group of us here at the church sat down to talk about what would be a service type, that wasn't actually boring, that we might kind of, I don't know, enjoy. And so we decided, or we came up with this whole like plan, and we're still moving forward with it, but we kind of realized that what we're looking for is much more dialogue based. We don't want to be talked at for 20 minutes. We want to be talked with, and we really want to be able to ask those questions, because I think for a long time, at least in a lot of our experiences at the church, when you ask the hard questions, you get because I told you to. All right, because I told you so, or because the Bible told you so. But nobody really knows where in the Bible it says. They just kind of tell you those things, or they like quote one random verse out of context or something like that. And so there's a real desire, I think, for us to really find those answers. And anyhow, out of all of that, we realized it would be antithetical to our mission to start an in-person service in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
That seemed like it would be kind of hugely hypocritical to the people we were trying to reach. And so from that, we were challenged, well, what are you going to do in the meantime to start like getting to know people, or advertising in some weird sense. And that's where this podcast came from.
Woo!
And it's almost been, it's been over 6 months.
We've been out for over 6 months, yeah, because we started before Christmas, and
That's really weird.
Right?
it's
It feels like it
June,
was like
which is-
last week that like,
It's
we started
July.
or something.
It is so weird. That is actually insane. And I was just thinking, like, we only had like a couple months with Andy. I guess it was like half a year.
You've had an entire
Yeah.
year with me.
Well, okay. Yes, actually exactly today.
That's weird.
You know what's even more crazy than that?
Hmm.
2021 as of today is basically 50% done.
Yay!
Time is fleeting.
Few things in this year that we can celebrate. It's on the list.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that's sort of we kind of started from that isolation perspective of
Yeah.
how do we reach each other while we're still isolated. And that's why you all get to listen to us. You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
Right? For anyone who's actually continued listening 17 minutes into this.
I empathize with you.
Yeah. Congrats to you.
So for the
As
last
for making it this far.
Exactly.
Not to us, but to you,
Yes.
the listener.
Yes.
This episode should just go in the dumpster at this point.
it's just, I mean,
Never see the light of day. You guys should just come in tomorrow and record a different episode. It's not like I'm going to listen to it.
oh,
That's
great.
true.
You guys told him?
Oh shoot. We were supposed to tell him.
We would have gotten
man.
off scot-free, too.
Don't you worry. I'm
Just
still
release
not going to
something
hold it against
completely
you.
different without saying anything to Andy. He never would have
It's
even
like
known.
Andy's just gone.
I like go there to
We
hear
just cut his lines out for this entire
4 years down the road. I go back to like hear the nice words of, oh, I'm leaving and all this kind of thing. And it's
When you actually care about the podcast 4 years later.
4 years
Yeah.
from now.
4 years from now, you guys are extremely successful, making millions of dollars.
Yeah,
a day.
that's for sure gonna happen.
Oh
That's
yeah,
on
for
the
sure,
list.
for sure.
Just absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the kind of primo content.
I'm
that,
definitely going to be wanting to do this podcast in 4 years, for sure. Definitely, guys. Absolutely.
I definitely have enough content to make it 4 years for sure, guys.
If it'll reach a stage where it'll have to evolve to something else.
It will.
Never plant our flag, never change, never adapt to the times ever. They have to change.
Okay, so
enough.
before we get too far down this horrible rabbit hole,
So,
Oh boy.
I believe that's everything that we have been saying not to do.
yeah, but when we do it, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think you understand that. And that's why you're fired.
Oh, because you want to stay the exact same.
Exactly. We're getting rid of you so we can stay the same. It makes
Nothing-
total sense.
You're
Nothing
replacing
has
it,
to
yeah,
change
exactly.
because,
Kate's practically
If-
Andy. I mean,
listen, nothing has to change because if we change to make it more appealing to people, that means we're being of the world. And we're not of the world,
Oh,
okay?
you did not.
I felt some shade there, so. Oh, you took your glasses off.
Well,
I
you guys
put my
both
shades
put yours
on.
on.
Okay, well now
and
I need
so
to
it's
put mine
like-
on.
Come on,
There we go.
I put them
There
on
we
because I
go.
couldn't see, and I was trying to see how much time we had left.
I can't see.
Guys,
how much
Elijah's
of
like,
Yeah.
please end the torture. When are we done? So I guess for the last part of this half of the week's episodes, what was your least favorite episode? There's
Spring
gotta
that
be
on
one.
me with like
I-
5 minutes left. Why don't you?
I think my least favorite
minutes left.
conversation
I
that
guess,
we've had
Is this one?
no, yes, has been the hard conversations one.
Oh, okay. Why?
Mostly because, and I know this is like due to the reason of not wanting to like piss people off or that kind of a thing, but we've skirted some of the harder conversations, and that always is like, I know everybody around this table is perfectly fine with having those hard conversations and like having those, but we don't know all of our listeners, and so we can't just say, oh, we can 100% talk about this conversation because there's no way that it'll ever get on anybody else's nerves because it will get on somebody else's nerves. And it's not.
When we work for a specific church and
Yeah.
a specific denomination, and that makes it a little bit. There are certain things that we do have to skirt around, which does make it quite ironic to then talk about hard conversations.
Yeah, and I just, it really, I guess it's because it felt so ironic that it was the whole thing for me. I'm gonna put my glasses back on.
That's
now because
fair. I don't
can't
know
see
why
anything.
you left them off that long, but sure.
Because Elijah put his on. But no, it was this.
Don't take your glasses off again, Andy.
Sorry. It was
Otherwise,
this,
you're fired.
it was this whole like thing, and it was a little bit like hard for me to do that whole hard conversations when we aren't actually talking about the hard conversations. Where it feels like so I'm like journalism. That's what I've gone into, and that's that whole thing of call out the hard conversations, all that kind of a thing. And so it's more difficult for me to sit here and like look at some of the things that we've done as a podcast that I'm like, this doesn't inform people of anything kind of thing, because it's like, well, then talk about the actual issue. But we can't talk about the actual issue because of who's supporting us and who's like all this kind of a thing. And so it's that whole mumbo jumbo that you have to work your way through. And then the secondary part to that was, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
That's fair. I can totally get that, and it is interesting because we've talked about a lot of really, I think, hard conversation topics. There are some specifically that we don't talk about, and we've talked about those in private, not on the podcast, and I think it's hard for all of us in that sense of wanting to talk about certain things but knowing that we can't. But it's funny because we're already pretty controversial. Like,
I don't even think we are, but yeah, we are by the church's standards.
By the church's standards, we are our name itself is almost
our name, period. Yeah, it's
like an immediate turnoff. And then we have, we just have a lot of conversations that people don't want to have. And so I think that in and of itself just turns certain people away. So we are having them, and I think it is nice that we're starting them, but I totally get why that would be like, okay.
That was my whole like, I really wanted to, I can't bring that up because of X reason. Oh, what about, we can't talk. It was also like the hardest conversation to have for that reason. It was like, you have to filter yourself because it's like, can't talk about, okay, can't talk, what do we,
what can we talk about?
We have to talk about
point?
having the hard conversations without actually bringing up some of the topics that are the hard. And it's this whole like, life is mumbo jumbo, man.
It's very fair.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
I can't think necessarily of like a least favorite episode, but I do remember probably one of the hardest times I've had after we recorded or during recording was probably one of the first ones we did with actually talking about shame culture.
Fair.
And I'm sure that like Andy and Ruth will remember too. Like we had a long talk in between episodes, just trying to like
make sure everything was legit.
Yeah, really trying to make sure that we were all like kind of working towards a point. But what made it so difficult for me personally was we were talking about all these, the reality that a lot of people were living in under the church, under shame culture from the church. And as a podcast, where our motto has sort of been church is stupid, but the comma but is supposed to kind of represent why we're still a part of it or why we decide to stay. But at the end of that conversation, there really wasn't much of a comma but, because some people, for some people, because it was hard for me during that episode because I was trying to think of like when we would talk about the shame culture of the church and how some of that church culture has been known and that it still does just beat certain people down, beat certain demographics down, it shames people for who they are, and then I had to sit there, maybe I didn't have to, but I was sitting there after that trying to be like, okay, but what now? And I just couldn't think of anything because
Well, and it was so interesting because having that conversation with you guys after that, because it was an hour long, and for some of you listeners, a little behind the scenes information, we almost scrapped that episode actually.
Yeah.
Because it was difficult for both Andy and Elijah to understand quite where we were going. But what was so interesting about it was later I was like talking to a couple of my friends who all happened to be female, and they were like, "No, I got it."
Yeah, and
there was no question. But it was just funny because it was like one of those hard like things to know as the person who at that time was the only female on the episode. Like, am I crossing lines? Am I not? Where is the but? So that's fair. That was a very tough one.
Yeah, I'm glad that we stuck with it, and definitely looking back at it. I mean, a lot of it was just me getting in my own head. But I mean, when we go back to sort of the philosophy behind almost the first episode, or the creation of the podcast in general, I mean, I think we originally just made this podcast so we could just talk about crap, talk about stuff that people don't want to talk about. Sometimes in good conversations and in happy ones, and other times in tough conversations where everyone is just sort of talking about negative impacts, and that's sometimes fair. That's just it. But I mean, I'm happy with it now. But it was definitely tough to find the direction in that moment. For me personally, I guess.
Very fair. Very fair. Kate, did you have a least favorite, or was there? I would guess the D&D if I had to.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, I know it was
I still don't understand any of that fun jazz or whatever. So I'm very. Don't know anything about me. I'm 18, but I like. When you take those quizzes online and they're like, oh, answer these questions and we'll tell you how old you are. Yeah, I always get like 60 or 70 years old because I prefer to talk on the phone versus text. I had somebody teach me how to use Snapchat the other day. It was great. Yeah. So.
I understand. It's also probably our number one fan, or at least Elijah's number one fan. Bailey, his least favorite is also D&D. Actually, he tells me adamantly he refuses to listen to it. Because D&D is, quote, for sweaty nerds. So,
well, I think that kind of sums up the table, but,
Hey, you're at the table now.
Yeah, at least two at the table.
So, just because it hits so true doesn't mean you need to be
No, well, guys, I think that we're out of time today.
All right, guys, yep, I'm done.
Did you quit?
A while ago, actually, about a month.
Yeah, so that's fair. And I actually don't have a least favorite episode, which is lame to say, I know. But I do have episodes, like, I can't remember exactly what they were, but there are definitely times during recording where we'd get halfway through and I'm like, what am I going to say now? Like, where do we go? Because I have nothing left. And you guys have really helped, like, by filling in a lot of blanks, It's one of the things I love about this podcast is I might have an idea and come up with it, but you guys jump in and make it completely different than what I expected, and I love that.
Yeah, we do.
That's a good thing, right?
No, it's great because like I only see from one perspective, right? Whereas you guys bring in totally different. What?
Ruth took the car, put it on the tracks. We drove the train into it.
I mean, I wasn't gonna put it like that, but that's why you fired. No, honestly though, like this podcast wouldn't be what it is without you both. And now we know it's transforming into something new as we're taking on Kate and losing Andy to camp or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever is probably a better phrasing of where I'm going.
Which is stupid, or comma, whatever.
But yeah, if you thank you guys if you managed to make it this far into the episode, and if you're thinking, man, what was the point of this episode?
There
You know,
was
we're kind of
none.
with you.
Exactly.
But hey, tune in next week as we finish our goodbye.
Well,
Next-
it's still this
Next
Not-
next episode. It's not next week.
yeah.
It wouldn't be your final.
We've done that for 50 episodes.
True. It wouldn't be your final week if I didn't mess that up for us.
If you didn't extend it another week.
Exactly. So, from all of us here at Church is Stupid,
Comma but.
I'm Ruth,
I'm Andy.
I'm Elijah.
And I'm Kate.
and we hope you have a great week.